Chapter 10 is going to be dealing with residential product knowledge. I mentioned earlier that of all the government entities that we have to deal with, local government is going to be the big one. And with local government, we're going to be dealing with building codes, we're going to be dealing with housing codes, electrical codes, fire codes, those kinds of things. Let me say this about the local permitting process. In real estate, if you perform any service of real estate in the state of Florida for somebody else and for compensation, you have to have a real estate license. The question might be, who has to have a construction license? Well, anybody who builds a home for somebody else in the state of Florida and for compensation has to have a contractor's license. Now, can an individual build their own home? They certainly can, and they don't have to have a license to do that. Just like somebody who buys and sells real estate for themselves, they don't have to have a license for that either. In real estate, we get our license from the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. A contractor's license also comes from the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. Now let's talk about the various features of a home. First of all, lots. We have corner lots, we have interior lots, we have cul-de-sacs. A cul-de-sac is at the end of a street. It's kind of a circular. A lot of people like cul-de-sacs because they feel it's a little safer. Let me tell you what a key lot is. A key lot is that unique lot in a subdivision that's typically larger than other lots, maybe have better vegetation, maybe bigger trees. In other words, it's a lot that's worth more money than some of the other lots. And typically speaking, those abutting property owners to a key lot, their values are going to go up because of that key lot. A lot of subdivisions today, especially in your neighborhoods where you don't have a lot of land, build zero lot lines, and that's where it is from building to building. Townhouses are built zero lot line. As far as roof structures are concerned, the original roofs that we had at one time were called gable roofs. It's where we had two sloping sides. The problem with a gable roof is that in high storms, high winds, hurricanes if you will, those ends that did not slope down were subject to actually coming off. So gable roofs today are not as popular as the hip roof. The hip roof is where you have four sloping sides. And let me say something about the hip roof. Your insurance is typically lower with a hip roof than it is with a gable roof. You also have gambrel, you have flat roofs, mansard, and a dormer is simply a window that is in a roof line. As far as windows are concerned, jalousie windows are the little bitty windows that you crank out. You have fixed windows. Probably the most popular is the double hung, and let me explain the double hung. The double hung, first of all, drops down from the top and raises from the bottom. In those homes that were built pre-air conditioning, it was a good way to circulate or ventilate a house. You would drop it down, hot air would leave the bottom, cooler air would come in. As far as insulation is concerned, the way that we determine how good our insulation is through something called the R value or the R rating. The HVAC, the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system, can be either electric, it could be gas, just depending on what your preference is. As far as environmental hazards, and that'll be the last thing in this chapter we need to talk about, there are a number of environmental issues that are always going to be important for us to know about. Asbestos is a big one. Radon gas. Radon gas is that odorless, colorless gas that's typically found in basements or houses that have been sealed for a long time. Northwest Florida doesn't have as much problem. Tampa Bay, the Central Florida area does. Lead paint has become a big issue too, and lead paint poisoning. Formaldehyde is also another issue that we have to deal with. Underground storage tanks where there have been gas tanks and those kinds of things are also another issue that we deal with. And we're going to talk more in another chapter about having soil tested for these pollutants. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to do our quick Chapter 10 review on product knowledge. Building codes are local in nature. Contractor's license are obtained through the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. A key lot is one that is better than other adjacent lots and generally more expensive. The gable roof has two sloping sides where the hip roof has four sloping sides. The strength of insulation is found in our R value. The environmental hazards includes asbestos, radon gas, lead-based paint, and formaldehyde. The most common household electrical current is 110 volts. And that's the end of our Chapter 10 review.